Desperate for work, millions of migrants are flooding into Malaysia. They don't just do the work that no one else wants to do. They also create vast profits for those bringing them in.
But this system is under table one. The under table go to where?
And it's a business with corruption at every level. While the select few get rich, the workers are trapped in crippling debt, left to live in fear and uncertainty.
If I'm arrested, my family will starve to death.
I'm Steve Chow. On this episode of 101 East, we investigate the forces making money off the recruitment of vulnerable workers.
Seeking a better future, migrants from impoverished countries across Asia are drawn to Malaysia. But this Bangladeshi man's plight shows how it can all go wrong. He agreed to share his story if we protect his identity. We'll call him Nasir. Like most migrant workers, he took huge loans to pay a recruitment agent to arrange a job. Now, Nasir wishes he never came.
I would never have come if I knew. I wouldn't wish for anyone to fall into an agent's trap like this.
It's estimated there are up to 4 million illegal workers in Malaysia. Nasir is just one of them. Another 2 million are legal, and someone is making money from each and every one who arrives.
An employment agent offered me the chance to work in Malaysia. He said it would cost $4,300 to arrange it. He would send me in on a tourist visa, prepare all the documents, and get me a job. He said I could earn enough to send home $370 a month. I agreed.
Nasir thought it was all legal and confirmed. He was wrong. He flew to Malaysia in August 2016 with the agent and a group of other Bangladeshis, but they never left the airport. Nasir says the agent quickly changed plans after discovering his usual immigration contacts were not around to let them through.
We spent the whole day in a waiting room at the Kuala Lumpur airport. The agent said there was a problem and we had to go to Indonesia before re-entering Malaysia.
The group was herded onto another plane, bound for Jakarta. Here, Indonesian traffickers took over. For 4 days, they traveled by bus and ferry through the city of Medan in North Sumatra.
We were taken to a house in Medan. I saw many other Bangladeshis in there, all packed into a small space.
Like Nasir, they had been promised jobs in Malaysia, but their dream was turning into a nightmare.
The agent took our passports and mobile phones. They did not allow us to use them and hardly gave us anything to eat.
They waited for more than 2 weeks, hungry, fearful, and anxious.
They gave us so little food, we were starving. They threatened to beat us if we protested. They even threatened us with weapons.
Finally, the traffickers announced it was time to go. It was only then that they discovered a treacherous sea journey awaited them.
He said we had to go to Malaysia by boat. We wanted to know why. He said we had no choice. Another agent had sold us to him.
the men departed from a port near Medan, heading towards the Malaysian state of Malacca.
There were so many of us packed into a small boat. The weather was harsh. It was torture. One of the Indonesian guys beat someone on the head and he started bleeding. They said if there was any more shouting, they were going to throw us into the sea.
For 3 days, the men survived on what little water they had and eating uncooked rice. They were weak, exhausted, and frightened. Then as they approached Malacca, things got even worse.
Malaysian Coast Guards ordered us to stop. The traffickers told us to hide and not come out. We heard the guards sound their warning and give chase, but our boat didn't stop.
They turned back and headed north, searching for another place to come ashore. The following morning at low tide, they were forced to jump off the boat into the sea near the coastal town of Kuala Selangor.
We were dropped 2 kilometers from the shore and told to swim to the coast. They said there would be an agent waiting to take us to our accommodation, give us food and jobs and everything our contracts promised. We sank chest deep in the mud and waded through it. There were sharp rocks. We were muddy and bleeding all over by the time we reached the forest. We waited for hours. There was no one there.
Fearing arrest, the men split up. Nasir's group trekked through the forest for a day. Finally, they found a main road. One of them had worked in Malaysia before and was able to speak the local language. He borrowed a passerby's phone to call a Bangladeshi contact for help. They might have finally made it into Malaysia, but abandoned by the employment agent and without any papers, they were now illegal migrants, forced to live in the shadows.
Since I have no documents, I can't move around freely. I live like a fugitive. The only thing on my mind is, when will I get arrested?
Trapped in that bondage, Nasir was desperate to take on any job for any money. He soon found work at one of the many construction sites in Kuala Lumpur.
Sometimes I live in a forest, sometimes under a tent at the construction site. It's hard work. I get $200 at the end of the month.
Workers like him often live hidden at their work sites, rough and exposed to the elements.
My whole body is sore and I can't sleep well. There are lots of mosquitoes. It's a tough life, but if I don't do such jobs, how will my family survive? How will I ever repay my debts?
Undocumented workers form the invisible workforce in Malaysia. They are underpaid and have no legal protection against abusive employers.
Employer just want them to work, but do not want to be responsible for them being there.
Alex Ong is an activist dedicated to helping migrant workers who live on the fringes of Malaysian society.
When we look at these undocumented workers who actually live at the edge of the jungle, many of them are actually engaged in the plantation as well as the construction worker. They can build out their own village, their own community, not too far from the job site. After the project finish, they may have to move on again.
Some of these migrant settlements are well hidden. On the edge of a forest, next to a wealthy neighborhood in Kuala Lumpur, we see people disappearing into the undergrowth. We follow them and film covertly. Cameras are not welcome here. An Indonesian man tells me most of the other residents are out working as builders, cleaners and gardeners. I ask why they live here. And that's before the fees each worker pays an agent to arrange their jobs.
Setiap bulan
potong gaji macam itu, mau potong berapa? 300 kah? Potong makan habis ah. Potong air, potong rokok habis.
Those familiar with their plight say there is even less money left after paying monthly bribes so that law enforcers allow them to continue living here.
They don't want to go to immigration camp. Each person is paying around 50 to 150 ringgit to this middleman to settle their problem of not facing the consistent rate from this local enforcement officer.
Under the cover of darkness, we visit a much bigger clandestine community, home to nearly 1,000 foreign workers. The area comes alive at night after they return from work.
kebanyakan tidak paspor.
Ya, bayar sini kosong. Kadang-kadang paspor. Itu kadang 100 orang ada paspor, 900 orang itu.
This Bangladeshi worker has been living here for 3 years. He invites us for dinner in the tiny room he shares with 3 other men. He says there's a reason why such a big community has been around for so long.
Lagi polis punya kereta, palang punya kereta sudah sampai orang semua lah.
Oh.
Itu orang tak ada masuk. Ina tunggu saja.
Mesti bayar duit di orang lah.
Ya, ini lagi polis punya duit company-nya bayar.
Setiap bulan ada orang baru mari sini.
Ini lagi 2-3 hari sudah ini orang 2 gang sini masuk 50 orang ini. Kadang-kadang ada ini Bangladesh, Barmani orang kah, ini Indonesia kah. Kadang-kadang orang Siling, kadang-kadang Ramdai, kadang-kadang Oya.
More than half the migrant workforce in Malaysia is undocumented. Some like Nasir because they were trafficked, others because they overstayed their visas to keep working so they can pay off their debts. For years, the government has failed to bring down their numbers. We're about to see the powerful forces that profit from recruiting more and more workers.
The importing of migrant workers into Malaysia is not really to support local businesses, but rather it is seen as a business unto itself. So these are some of the characteristics.
Stephen Sim is an opposition member of parliament. He's worried about how border security lapses allow countless illegal entries. In 2015, Malaysia's special branch reported 80% of border guards were on the take. The following year, authorities busted an insider syndicate for disabling passport checks at the airport. Since then, corrupt immigration officers continue to be arrested.
Definitely there is a correlation between human trafficking, the massive migrant worker policy in Malaysia, as well as other problems with our immigration.
These problems are creating a flood of illegal workers. To keep track of them, the government allowed their employers to register and rehire them legally. It appointed 3 private companies the employers must go through to legalize their workers. All 3 companies are headed by senior members of Malaysia's ruling political party, UMNO. They were awarded the government contracts without an open tender process. 2 of the companies have been linked to scandals. Malaysia's Auditor General found that MyEG has violated immigration laws. It illegally renewed nearly 9,000 work permits. Iman is suspected of bribing an Indonesian embassy official to issue passports and visas. The official has been charged in Jakarta for corruption. Based on the fees to legalize each worker, the three companies will earn tens of millions of dollars for processing even a small fraction of all the illegal workers in Malaysia.
Actually, a migrant worker is one of the important ATM for politicians, automatic teller machine.
Undocumented workers seem to be everywhere, hired even for mega projects. In southern Malaysia, the state government and Chinese investors are building a luxury development worth $100 billion. In May, local journalists uncovered an illegal Chinese workforce here, underpaid and abused. Within days, the government legalized more than 4,000 of them, including those working on other projects nearby. They had been tricked by a recruiter before they left China.
看了那签证是旅游签证啊，我问他这旅游签证我们到那儿怎么打工啊？要抓起来都是黑工是不是啊？他说没事儿，到那儿都给你办成换成那个工作签了。来到这以后就是不签证，也不给你写那个合同，就是干活你干活去吧，就是也别给钱。
No one has been charged for employing the illegal workers or bringing them into Malaysia.
If we are only doing legalizing the process for undocumented migrants who are already in Malaysia without securing our border, then we are of course encouraging more illegal immigration, because once they come in, it's easy for them to get legalized.
It's not only lucrative to legalize undocumented workers who are already here. There's another fortune to be made from bringing in more workers. And the government has appointed a group of companies to do just that. Stephen Sim calls them the Big Five super agents.
The problem with super agents is they have directors who are closely linked to the ruling party UMNO. Number two, they are all given contract through direct negotiation. There's no transparent open tender process. Number three, employers as well as migrant workers have to go through these people in order to get their application done.
Most of the applications are for workers from Indonesia, Bangladesh and Nepal, the top three sources for Malaysia's migrant labor. Based on combined official estimates, nearly 1 million workers will be recruited from these countries this year. The five super agents will earn more than $100 million from processing their recruitment. Stephen Sim says by appointing these companies, the government has privatized the immigration department's job.
They are raking money for simply doing what I call paper shifting work, handing over application form from the employers, from the migrant workers, to the immigration department. These are the things that the immigration department can already do themselves. In fact, they have already done for several other applications.
These companies are meant to cut out unscrupulous private agents and human traffickers making money off those desperate for work. But corruption hasn't stopped. Illegal operators continue to profit from workers and employers with the help of connections in high places. To investigate the extent of the corruption, I pose as an employer who needs 100 construction workers. Several sources, from foreign workers to an industry insider, have led me to this man, a Bangladeshi agent based in Malaysia. Suraj Hashim runs a recruitment business.
I am director through license.
Recruitment company. So normally your client is what industry?
I also got the client manufacturing also. Itu what else? Itu baju mereka lah. Do agree? You sign license.
He says he bribes senior Malaysian officials to bring in Bangladeshi workers. His services don't come cheap. But this system is under table one. Okay. Every 100 workers, how much?
One person like 3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5,000. 1 person 3, 4, 5,000 to bring in one worker under table. Then give to who?
Under table? Officer lah.
Officer. Immigration or KDM?
Immigration or KDM.
Both are. So you know Under an agreement between Malaysia and Bangladesh signed last year, agents like him are no longer allowed to operate. But to convince me he still does, Suruj shows me a confidential paper trail. He says these are letters from 5 companies he helped apply for special approvals to bring in construction workers from Bangladesh, and that he obtained supporting documents from the Home Ministry instructing the Immigration Department to approve the applications. The documents have an official letterhead, reference numbers, and signatures of senior officials.
I am confident I can give 1,000 people, 2,000 people. Another people the only can talk.
We contacted the Home Ministry about the documents and his claims. Despite our repeated attempts, they did not respond. Malaysia's official policy is to reduce its migrant workforce, but that's not happening. In February 2016, Malaysia signed a deal with Bangladesh to import a staggering 1.5 million workers. Their recruitment is done through an online portal run by one of the government-appointed super agents, Cineflux. Deputy Prime Minister Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, who is also Malaysia's Home Minister, classified the Cineflux contract as a national secret.
Anything that happens behind closed door is prone to abuse. When the importing of migrant labor is driven by private profit and not driven by, say, the need of the industry or the need of our economy, and that is the cause of a problem today.
Moving the recruitment process online hasn't stopped the corruption. We are told this man, Saiful Akmal, manipulates the system through his powerful ties in the Immigration Department. Undocumented workers say he's a middleman they paid to get legalized. We arrange a meeting, posing as an employment agent who needs his services, and find out he can do much more.
Saya tak cakap saya pandai, tapi dalam prosedur tu saya punya group. Actually, saya memang cakap sama you, memang I ex-immigration, so banyak benda yang saya buat.
He says those controlling the online recruitment portal recognize his account when he logs in. For the right fee, the applications he makes on behalf of employers are quickly approved.
23 hari bulan 1 tahun 2017, I apply 100. Terus approve 100. No one reject. Yeah. Once bila payment problem, dalam sudah done you punya kerja, dia orang sudah nak duit. You tak boleh import, tak boleh duit.
We ask how much he charges to get approvals for each worker.
6,000 untuk penulisan dan bayaran pas. Tapi you kena ingat, nak buat permohonan tu, you kena beli bank guarantee, you kena buat documentation everything. Mesti satu orang kena habis 7,000 baru boleh jadi.
To prove he can do it, he sends us photos and screenshots of recent successful applications for foreign workers made on behalf of a construction company.
I show you, ini yang I buat, tapi I keep silent lah, I tak bising dia, tak cerita sama orang. Ini I buat Korea dengan Indonesia under TVP, Traditional Visit Pass Training, okay? Yes. All approved. Kalau dokumen semua lengkap, kita buat dalam masa seminggu lebih sikit sudah buat. Tak lama, I buat, tak lama.
Like the other recruitment agent we met, Saiful confirms that getting foreign workers into Malaysia costs a lot of money under the table. But he says he has the right connections to make it happen.
Orang tak boleh buat, I boleh buat. Tapi yang mana also ex-immigration lah. Cakap lama kita dalam market lah, orang-orang lama player immigration lah. Orang kenal kita, orang tak.
We contacted the Immigration Department about those claims, but they gave no response.
Every migrant worker that comes in, somebody is making a huge profit. One immediate reform that is needed is to have a proper roadmap. Without a roadmap, what we are seeing here is really importing of migrant workers driven by business interests.
Meanwhile, workers like Nasir continue to live in limbo, exploited and abused. It's been 9 months since he started work at the construction site. He has borrowed more money to pay an agent who is helping him apply to be legalized, leaving him in greater debt. It has already cost him $5,000 to get to where he is now, 7 times more than official charges.
I came to Malaysia hoping to make a lot of money. Now I just wonder how I'm ever going to repay my debt.
Nasir is not the only foreign worker at the mercy of agents who leave them trapped in debt. Official recruitment systems are supposed to end the exploitation, but corruption continues to fuel a money trail where people in power profit from millions of migrants.